I want to share some of my life experiences, lessons I've learned, and how I got to where I am today. So, watch on for more. I turned 30 a few months ago, and this is going to be a summary of lessons I think I've learned on my way to this stage in my life. 30 is kind of weird because you feel like you're old, but you're still young, and you're reflective, and I feel a bit like I wish I'd done more with my 30 years, but I know I have much time to go, and I've tried my best. But I think with in my 20s at least, I felt quite invincible, and I felt like I had infinite time, and I would go out and party and drink and see friends and make plans and cancel and have goals and then not hit them and not really care. But I think having turned 30 in some way, I've reached a point where I feel a bit more intentional, and I want to be more intentional. And so I've taken the time to reflect on some of my life lessons and figure out how I want to apply those going forward. And I want to share them so that people don't necessarily make the same mistakes I did or have to ponder as much as I did to figure out what I think is important. I think when you're younger, you can waste a lot of time chasing things that aren't as important as you think they are. So promotions, money, certain friendships, looking cool, being well dressed, being at the coolest party, whatever it is, things that you really feel at that time are super important and mean a lot to you. But I'm here to say that those things that mean a lot to you when you're that age may not mean as much when you're older, and it's important to try and discern what is coming from you as a person, what's actually important, versus external factors influencing you and making you feel that things are important because other people are prioritizing them as well. I think I also used to feel that life, there was so much time. I'm 22, I've got 8 years till I'm 30, blah blah blah, and those 8 years went like that. And there's an illusion of time being endless, and looking back, there's a lot of time I wasted saying I'll do this later this month, I'll do this later this year. Even with YouTube, so many times throughout my life I started and stopped and said, okay, well, I'll do a video next week, or I'm busy this week, I'll do it next month. And then a month would be 6, and then 6 would be a year, and then I'd start again in January and then do 2 videos. And I always felt I could put stuff off, and I realized that every second is important, and you never get those seconds back, and each second adds up to a minute, and it's all of those things. And so I think one thing that's very important to do is be focused on what is important to you, and make sure you're always trying a little bit every day or every week to work towards that thing. Even if it's a skill or a hobby or an interest, carving out time to do the things that are important to you as a person, separate from your friends and other influences and stuff like that, if that makes sense. Try and prioritize the thing you want to do. Trust me, if you don't focus on doing it, you won't do it, and then you'll look back and think, now it's too far gone. And that, I think, that is another thing I've been happy to realize, is that there is no limit on doing certain things, and there are things that I haven't done that I'm focusing really hard on doing now, and they are going well. But I wish I had just done this 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, because I'd have a lot of groundwork and equity into those things and probably be in a different place. So time is not infinite, and do not waste it. And then there's the pursuit of happiness. I think sometimes we look for happiness in the wrong places. So friendships or jobs can give us a lot of value, and we feel that, okay, I've got a good job, so I'm happy because of my job, and I'm getting paid well, so I'm happy because of the money. Or I have friends, so that means I should be happy because I have a group of people. But perhaps maybe deep down you know that job or that friendship isn't actually healthy or serving you in a way that is truly fulfilling, but you're scared to leave or go somewhere else because you just feel like, well, this is all I'm going to get. And sometimes wasting your time staying in something that isn't serving you for too long, or looking for happiness in something that can't give you that when you know it as well, can be very detrimental. And I think I spent a lot of time in friendships that maybe weren't fulfilling, but I was scared to separate myself from them because I felt that I had a good thing and that's the best I was going to get. And I think there's something in learning to separate yourself from it being the best you can get, and actually thinking to yourself, does this serve me? And if it doesn't, it's okay to let it have a chapter or a purpose, but once it's reached its capacity or limit, accepting that, moving on. Same with work. If you're doing a job that you know you don't enjoy, isn't fulfilling, or is toxic in a certain way because of a manager, there's only so much you can take, and sometimes you can suppress and tell yourself that it's fine, then actually after a while it all comes to a boiling point and you kind of crash out and then realize that you wish you'd left earlier. And only when you leave something that's not good for you can you actually open the doors of possibility to see what might come in. And often the thing that happens after you leave a bad situation is always better, but it takes the first step of leaving to get that opportunity and chance. Consumption versus contentment or creation. I think we focus a lot on consuming, so buying nice clothes and having nice tech and going to nice restaurants and being online and consuming data and scrolling and seeing the latest memes and videos and stuff. But there is something about the flip side of that where you're finding contentedness should I say, in where you are. So going on a nice walk, or having a conversation with a friend, or making something for someone, like baking something, or doing a craft that gives you an output, so knitting for example, or writing or painting, and finding contentment the feeling of contentedness in those things itself can really be way more fulfilling and isn't tied to a monetary value or something capitalist or something material. And even for me, I think looking back, I was saying this recently in therapy, that the thing I found that's been the most fulfilling for me are things that I do that are creative. So when I was acting when I was younger, when I was singing when I was younger, when I was dancing, when I was cooking, when I was producing plays at school, something just felt very natural, and I go into a state where I don't second guess myself, and I know what I like, and I have a feeling for it, and there's a joy in myself that lights up when I'm doing those things. And I spend a lot of time not doing those things to focus on career and money and holidays and partying and clothes and all of those things, which I also enjoyed, but I think getting the balance right is very important. And I think, in summary, happiness isn't necessarily about having more. It's actually being content with where you are and wanting less and needing less, because you find happiness within yourself. So finding things that you can do regardless of your situation that bring you joy and make you feel happy, that is the balance of happiness. I think the next thing is learning to slow down. Life is very fast paced. Friendships, jobs, travel, transitions of things, moving from country to country or part of town to another town, and studying, then being home and going here to meet someone, and it can be so busy. And I sometimes think we can find a sense of distraction in really busying our lives and being so busy, but I think it's very important to learn to slow down and enjoy things and actually find peace in things that can be rather mundane. So a slow morning where you just chill in bed and read, or making a nice breakfast every day, or taking time to walk every evening before you go to bed, or reading a book that you enjoy, or I said reading twice, the reading's good for you, or even just taking time to call your mum or whatever, doing things that are slower paced, maybe walking to the office rather than getting the bus, and having time to just be present and enjoy those things for what they are rather than chasing something else, I think can be really, really important. And I think that's something that we could all definitely work on doing and benefit from doing, as opposed to filling our time up so much that we don't get a sense of how we feel or time to connect with what we're really feeling inside. It comes from a feeling of or desperation and a need and a want to get to a destination. I want to be successful, I want to have a promotion, I want to have money, I want to be liked. So we're constantly desperately rushing to try and achieve and get to that place where that thing has happened, so we can feel a sense of relief. Okay, I'm there and now I can relax. But I think I realized getting older that there's always a goal, and then when you reach the goal, there's another goal. And so learning to actually slow down and enjoy the journey is what will bring you happiness, because a destination never brings you happiness. It's the journey itself that should be fulfilling. Fear is such a big part of life, especially growing up. There are things you might desire or want that you don't necessarily allow yourself to imagine or chase because of the fear of failure. And I think my fear of failure was definitely a big thing. There were many things I knew as a kid I definitely wanted to do, and I didn't ever start them because I thought I'm not good enough, or that couldn't be me. I couldn't see myself having these things or being good at those things, or being confident enough to say to my friends, I want to be or do this thing. And that to this day is one of my biggest regrets, because I had such a lust for life and passion for those things. I'm working on bringing that back now for sure, but I think sometimes it can be very easy to let fear of other people's opinions, fear of perception, fear of failure in itself stop us from actually being in touch with what really matters to us. And I've realized that none of it really matters, because things that I was scared of doing and embarrassed to say, lots of people that I thought would judge me for doing those things are now doing them themselves, or have started doing them in different ways, or are suddenly people I thought would always be a certain way are suddenly veering in another direction and going after what they want. And I think it comes at this age where everyone's suddenly like, life is finite, and so I need to start doing what I want. I found around 28, 29, 30, lots of people start moving countries or changing careers or starting new businesses, or just doing whatever and breaking away from maybe what they thought was how they wanted to live their life. And I think that's when you realize that you've been living from fear rather than purpose. And so try to not let fear rule your life, and actually focus on what your purpose is and what you're driven by, and pursue those things earnestly. Boundaries. I think learning to put boundaries in place in all regards is very important. With yourself, learning when you need to put your foot down and say, I'm not going to do this bad habit anymore, I'm not going to engage in this activity anymore, I need to limit how much I watch TV or stay on my phone, or how much I party or drink or whatever. Learning to put boundaries in place and defining those and sticking to them and respecting them is very important. But also more so, I think boundaries in the way that you interact with the world and other people is also very important. I think I was someone that didn't really have boundaries in friendships, so I would just pour and give and give, and I loved absolutely, and always focus on treating people as best as I could regardless of how they treated me. And it meant that I never learned to say no, or say I can't show up for you in this way and this is my reason, or learning to just say I need space, and gave a lot of myself out all the time, but didn't really take much. And that is the problem that I had to work on. That was me problem, people pleasing. But I think learning how to respect and listen to yourself and what you have to give, and when your cup is empty, knowing when you need to take a pause and accepting that's fine and doesn't make you a bad person, needing or wanting space, I think is really important. And also it makes people respect you and builds friendships that are balanced and healthy. Friendships where one person is carrying the weight of the whole friendship and is giving all they can and not getting anything back, and I think breeds resentment in a way, and just also isn't balanced, because you're never going to feel fulfilled and that person doesn't know how to fulfill you because you're not asking for what you need. So being able to say, I need this, can you support me in this way, is very important, because that's how you learn to give and take and support each other and show up in ways that are useful for each person. So I think, yeah, definitely learn to put boundaries in place, and don't be afraid to say no. Sometimes no is needed, and if people can't take that, then they shouldn't be your friends. And the last thing is choosing change and chasing your own growth. One thing I've definitely learned in the last year is that no one's going to do the hard work for you. Unfortunately, you can talk to your friends all you want about starting a business or getting into fitness or eating better or, starting a new project or chasing your content dreams, but no one is actually going to do the hard stuff for you. And good things that you probably want are going to take work and consistency. And I had to realize that I can keep saying I want to be this and I'm going to be that, but if I don't actually in any way put in the work and challenge myself to make a plan and hold myself accountable and tell people that how I need to be held accountable and delineate what I'm going to do to reach those goals and write them down and keep checking in on myself and have mentors and engage in the communities and do the things that are hard to keep myself going, no one will, because people are living their own lives. You can tell your friends, your partners, your parents, or what are your siblings, but you really have to challenge yourself to be reflective every day and every week and say, okay, being honest, am I doing good enough? Am I on a pathway that feels fulfilling? Am I doing the things I said I was going to do? And if I'm not, why? What excuses am I making? What cycles am I repeating? And how can I stop those cycles? And it might be changing your routine or getting an accountability partner or going to work outside of your house in the library or making daily little tasks you need to do so you can do the weekly tasks and breaking it up so it's more achievable, or getting a diagnosis of ADHD, or figuring out ways that you can plan and structure your week that gives you time and space to do the things you want to do. But it takes a lot of self-reflection and challenging yourself and being honest and thinking about who you want to be and operating when you have a choice and need to make decisions when you're starting on a new journey, thinking, how would the version of me that I want to be act in this moment? They would do the thing, rather than thinking, how do I feel now? Because sometimes motivation is good, but it's not enough. What you need is discipline. I think discipline is a thing that helps you stay consistent. You can have motivation today and then not have it tomorrow, but discipline means you do it regardless of how you feel. And I think discipline is something I lacked a lot. I had a lot of inspiration and creativity and ideas, but I wasn't disciplined in how I applied myself to do those things. So I think you have to try hard to grow and challenge yourself and be willing to change and be honest and talk to yourself about how well you're doing on that journey. And if you're not being honest with yourself, you'll never really reach a place where you can grow and change. And I think that's the first step, is being able to honestly say to yourself, am I living my life how I want to, and is this a good reflection of the person I want to be? And if the answer is no, you have a lot of thinking and talking to do with yourself. But that's it. Those are my lessons. Those are things I think have been important for me to reflect on since I've turned 30, and things that I think could hopefully help and be useful to you. I think they're all in different spaces. They are very interesting and they take a lot of reflection. It took me a while to kind of figure out, what do I think are my main things that I wanted to share, and those are what I thought. And I think there's also obviously other things that you can think about, but my main takeaway is that life is now. Remember that. You only have one life. You only have one 2025. You only have one 2026, and whatever that is. You only are in this chapter, in this phase, in this moment now. So things will change, and you will look back and lament and say, I wish I did this, and I wish I had done that, and I wish that I'd taken advantage of that. But if you're in this situation, being self-aware to realize what the strengths and weaknesses and pros and cons of where you find yourself and how to leverage that and make the most out of it is very important. And I wish I'd used self-awareness more when I was growing up and focused on things when I had the space and time to. Of course, when you get older, it's harder. So I think that's one thing that's very important for me. Be kind to yourself. Don't be mean. Life can be really hard. It is difficult, and this is a video with lots of key points, and obviously I didn't get here overnight. I'm still working on these things, but be kind to yourself. Understand that life is hard. Know when you need to take a break and need rest. Know when life is beating you up, and accept that, and say that, and tell your friends. Don't waste time on things that don't matter. If they're not making you happy, you don't want to do them, you're not enjoying them, don't. There's so many things we can do with our lives. Go and choose to be whoever you want, wherever you want, and do those things happily. Don't force yourself to be unhappy, because that is the worst thing you can do. Don't lock yourself in a prison of torture when you have the key to get out and have a life that is fulfilling and full of joy. Love, be loved, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. You only get one life, so live it.